You may have heard the saying that we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. And if that's true, then perception is everything. And in unity, we believe that we get to create the world anew each day. It's the third principle of unity. We're co-creators, and we do that with our mind because we know that regardless of appearances, which is called relative realm, the absolute realm is within us, and we are one with source. We're divine. So those are essentially the three principles melded together, the first three principles. And it basically says that we're co-creators. Um, so that's what seeing through new eyes is about, and I'm going to explain. But first, an example. Two people can look out the same window. Maybe it's a Zoom window. Um, and maybe one sees a dirty window and some clouds, some spots on the sidewalk, some hedges that need trimming. But the other person sees the infinite miracle of life. And one person might see only problems, but the other person sees answers despite the problems. And the only difference between these viewpoints is perception, and the perceiver. And I think this is what we're about at Unity. We're about realizing that despite the problems and despite the conditions of the world, that we can envision a different reality that becomes our true reality, that guides us, that is our source and supply, that is our wisdom that we're tapping into. It's our power. So, this is a timely talk because seeing through new eyes, I recently, and where are my visual aids here? Uh, I wear glasses. Well, actually, I don't wear glasses. I just keep them in the car. And Jen knows this, so I have like up on the near the dashboard, I have this pair that I never wear, along with that pair that I never wear, along with this pair that's probably 6 years old, along with this pair that's probably 10 years old, and the lenses have popped out. But I remember really liking these, and even though the lenses popped out, I kept on telling Jen, "Oh no, I gotta pop the lenses back in." So I popped the lenses back in, and then the lenses would fall out again. Lenses are somewhere in the car. And so I go to Kaiser and they have me bring like the latest pair of these glasses and they have me try them on during the vision test. And they said, and they're all foggy right now. They said, "Do you realize that your current glasses and your best glasses, according, they don't do anything to help your vision at all. You're better off not wearing glasses." So I said, "Oh, well, no wonder why I thought it didn't look very good. That's why I never wore them." And so they adjusted my prescription. And you know how when you're turning those dials and there's that moment when it clicks and everything is so clear. And even though you're just looking at E and 3 and T and O, you're thinking, wow, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen when you finally click into the clarity that's possible. And so that happened for me. It was like seeing for the first time. And I was just accepting imperfect vision. I was so acclimated to this imperfect vision, and think about this symbolically, that I was forgetting how clear things could be. I was forgetting that clarity could happen, and I was thinking about, when I tried on these test classes, how many things, how many things I was missing out on, right? Little details and beauty. And so, what if the same thing is happening with our mental lenses and our emotional lenses? They're tuned to believe certain things. They're tuned to have a certain perspective because perspective is everything. And what about our spiritual lenses? So let's explore this idea further. The outer world organizes itself around the lenses of our inner world. And again, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. In fact, you may know that your eyeballs are taking in light that uh, the actual vision that your eyes see is upside down. That image is completely upside down, and it's the brain that flips it right side up. You're seeing with two eyeballs, and you're seeing, the bridge of your nose. You're seeing all these other things, and your perspective is cleaning all this up so it makes sense to you. And sometimes, when you do optical illusions, it's a teacher that, hey, our perception is not as reliable as we think it is. Um, and I read recently that we only see a small sliver of light. That's visible light, but there is this broad spectrum of light that is out there to see. And so we're just gazing at a little bit of it. There are colors that we haven't even seen. They're making up new colors that are actual colors that are new, but they're only available if they manipulate the eye in a certain way, because the eye has its limitations. All this reminds me of the saying from Wayne Dyer when he says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Another helpful saying, this is by a record producer by the name of Rick Rubin. I know, Jesse, you know who this guy is, but I didn't know a lot about him until I looked on Wikipedia. He's produced everybody. But he said, look for what you notice that no one else sees. Look for what you notice and no one else sees. I noticed when we're having these service chats that each person has a special perspective. Margie's like a color specialist. um, Austin has this amazing deep scientific knowledge where he will see things in the conversation and see solutions that no one else sees. And I think these are also pieces of our spiritual vision that has been given to us that we need to appreciate. So another story about vision, and I'm going to share this slide real quick. So Jan and I were in our back deck, and I'm going to share this slide. So here we are. Now, Jan had been noticing this for weeks, but I just noticed it recently. I looked at this thing, and we actually both had the same thought. Here is, these are things that someone might call weeds. And when we first moved in here, these didn't exist. But this thing was growing and growing and growing and growing. And Jen kept on just making sure that it got water. And it is taller than both either one of us. It is 6 feet tall, and it is just reaching up here, and it's got these little yellow, little teeny buds or flowers, and how beautiful it is. And the thought occurred to us, well, what's the difference between a weed and a plant? This could have been a plant that was worshipped by some ancient culture, and because of the wonderful resilience that it has, right? So what is the difference between a weed and a plant? These weeds are just such beautiful, and we have so many these little beautiful little sprigs in the back deck area that we want to just continue to nurture them. And you think of the dandelion, some people call it a weed, and some people say this is a spiritual uh, it's a spiritual plant. So this is all a really interesting thing to think about when it comes to perspective. The bee, when I grew up, the bee was something to be feared, and we were taught, okay, yeah, if you see a bee and it gets too close, you just smash it. And yet, the bee is this. It's actually respected as a spiritual messenger in about 8 different faith traditions, as a spiritual messenger, harbinger of good things. It is holy or royal, depending on what tradition you're looking at, and its importance to science and to the earth and to our ecosystem is huge. So now we there's this whole consciousness about seeing the bee through new eyes, because I think about a third of all harvested plant material relies upon pollination from bees. I'm not sure if I got those facts right, but just research bees. It's just so amazing. It's perspective. One more thought. I read recently that in the UK, someone bought a a painting at a thrift store for about 150 pounds. That's about $200. And later it was discovered to be the Vecchio Sultan by Salvador Dali. And it's worth about 200 times more. So it's about worth $40,000 instead of $200. And then I thought, for y'all who've ever looked at modern art, I thought, sometimes I look at modern art and I look and I think, well, I drew something better than that in the third grade. What's the value? So it's all perceived, our perception and the things that we assign value to is highly subjective, I think. So the question is, how many times have we seen ourselves as something less than a masterpiece? How many times have we seen, oh, someone else, they're a masterpiece because they've done this and achieved this and we're not? How many times have we seen ourselves as the mediocre plant, the common house plant, or the weed, instead of appreciating ourselves as the most amazing, amazing creation in the universe, right? And thinking about, if you think about God outside yourself for a second, think about Mother, Father, God, the Creator, and say, how does the Creator view you? They they see you as so worthy. They never see you as not worthy. They see you as so magnificent. They see you as precious, and they see you as a masterpiece. So why should you see yourself as less? Seeing through the eyes of God in every situation is such an amazing practice. Eckhart Tolle said that when we stop filtering life through ego's wounded lens, we see the truth more clearly through ego's wounded lens. I'll give you a brief example. When I worked at eBay in 2003 to 2006, it was a very intense and exciting time, and but I actually got a good review, and everybody gets a review score either one, which means you're out of there, a five, which is unheard of. That five is assigned for only like 2 to 3% of the people, but most people get this broad middle area, which is three, which means you're meeting expectations. Well, I actually got a four, which is a very good score for my first 3 quarters. I was doing well. Well, my fourth quarter, I got a less than a four score, and I was devastated. I was devastated. And I thought it was so horrible. And my my boss said, "Don't shrink into a corner. Uh, you can view this as an opportunity of a lifetime in this Fortune 500 company to rise to the next level." He could see my magnificence, where I was coming from the wounded, right? The wounded reaction. And years later, I realized I didn't get a bad review. I just got like the middle meets expectations. So I wasn't like down here. But I just took it so bad, right? Like a personal affront. So the same event seen two different ways. Because if I kept on getting good reviews, how am I supposed to get better unless I get this correction that some might call contrast in the universe? So how can we, back to come full circle, how can we fix our mental, emotional, spiritual lenses? How can we get a new prescription? Eckhart Tolle said, rather than being your thoughts and emotions, be the awareness behind them. And for those who have you seen the movie What the Bleep, uh, you can summarize the message of the whole movie basically that when we become the observer, that's when all, spiritual awareness is possible. That's where I think it was Marley Matlin. Someone helped me with that name. She's a deaf actress. Um, she just became the observer, and just magnificent things began to happen in her life. I highly recommend What the Bleep if you haven't seen it in a long time or if you've never seen it. So, and you might be able to catch it on YouTube. If you've had these thoughts, and all of us do, that are based upon the messages of seeing through the eyes of lack and limitation, seeing through the eyes of habit, we can, as one of our past speakers said, we can say, hold on, stop. We can reconsider that thought. Byron Katie said, it's not what happens to you, it's what you believe about what happens to you. You see what that means? It's not what happens to you. Most events are neutral. It's what you believe about what happens to you. That means all of us have had trauma. But if we continue to have that be a part of our story and relive the trauma, that we're perpetuating the trauma. So I the last part of my talk is going to be about another way to see through new eyes. And it is this book, which is called I'm Okay, You're Okay. And it is so old that it's like they don't do this to books anymore. They don't have this red, lining on them. This was printed in 19, the last printing was in 1969. And I don't know how I acquired it, but I acquired it when I was pretty young. And I wrote inside of the the inside of the book, I wrote, "Child of God allows us to erase the parental recordings." In other words, I mean, this is why AA works. This is why lots of things work in spirituality. Once we realize that we are a child of some greater divine energy, okay? We realize that our parents are our biological parents, and the tape recordings can go away because we are in essence a child of God who loves us without condition, this mother, father, God. So that's one of the things I learned from this book. But the other are these four worldviews that are part of the book. And I'm going to share these worldviews. The first worldview is I'm not okay, you're okay. I'm not okay, but you're okay. And this is the victim worldview. This is uh, the place where shame lives. It's the place where we believe that others are more capable, more worthy, more lovable than we are. It's the place where we're saying, okay, all these tape recordings were created by typically parental voices, but they may have been created by friends or peer pressure or societal or Facebook. All these tape recordings, they are our ruler, uh, our slide rule. They are our guideline for what it is to be worthy. I'm not okay, you're okay. So looking at things spiritually, unity would say this is forgetting the second principle that we have the divinity within us, and we're seeing others' divine spark, but we aren't seeing our own divine spark. I see God in you, but I don't see it in myself. So that's one worldview. The next worldview is something called I'm not okay. You're not okay. Okay? I'm not okay. You're not okay. This worldview is one that's marked by despair, hopelessness, um, giving up, and it's forgetting the first principle of unity, which says God is in everything and everyone. God is all there is. It's the one presence and the one power. It's forgetting that principle. So that's a bad place to be. The next worldview is I'm okay, you're not okay. I'm okay, you're not okay. And this is the judgmental view. I think it's where all racism lives, it's where bias lives, it's where we have unconscious bias that we're not even aware of. And there's no namaste in here. There's no unity in here. It's I see God in me, but I don't see God in everyone else. And this is, once you've been around unity a while, you understand how beautiful our teaching is because it shines a light on this thinking of I'm okay, you're not okay, that many people live in. And we can live in by accident if we don't constantly turn our spiritual awareness, our lenses, if we don't have sharp spiritual lenses, mental lenses, emotional lenses. Okay. So finally, there is, as the book would say on its cover, I'm okay, you're okay. And this is the state of namaste, where the God in me sees the God in you. The psychological position is where you've got an adult to adult. If you're an adult, you've got adult to adult communication happening. This is the healthy adult position. And the God in me sees the God in you. I see God everywhere. Um, it reminds me of the teachings of Emma Curtis Hopkins, the teacher of teachers who taught Ernest Holmes and Nona Brooks and the Fillmores, and she was so pivotal um, in everything. And she said the quickest way to get one's healing power going is to praise everything and everyone in your mind. Now, that may be really difficult depending upon the situation, but if we can't do it within our small circles here, if we can't do it with our partner, if we can't do it in our local communities, praising everyone and everything in our mind, try that on. This is and Denise can probably attest to this, this is where prayer power comes from. This is the kind of consciousness you need because we see past condition. If someone's being a jerk, we learn to we learn to say, like I often say, what's occurring is appropriate for them, given what they're going through and everything. If we were in their shoes, we might be doing the same thing. So we look past the condition, and prayer power is when someone is sick, we see them not as sick, we see them as the wholeness that they are. We hold that high watch, we hold that vision. So seeing them as whole with your spiritual eyes, even though the physical eyes may see the condition. If the world is sick, we must somehow see it as a part. We must see the end game. We must see the wholeness that is underlying this world. And that's not easy to do, but that's prayer power, and that is an extension of this trying on this new lens of I'm okay, you're okay. I'm okay, everyone is okay. I know it flies in the face of logic, but it is where this prayer power lives. There's a quote from Second Corinthians that says, "We walk by faith, not by sight." We walk by faith, not by sight. And I think what that means is we walk by the sight of the eye behind the physical eye, right? And trusting this spiritual vision, this divine vision, instead of our sensory evidence, okay? Walking by faith and not by sight. So I'll wrap this talk up by saying, in summary, let's see through the eyes of our divinity and not through tape recordings. Let's see through the eyes of I'm okay, you're okay. Let's stop seeing through the eyes of this is not ordinary. Let's see through the eyes of this is a miracle. And we can see each day through new eyes. We can hear through new ears. We can think with new thoughts. It's our choice. And when we do, each day rises to meet us with new possibilities that we didn't think of before. The past is behind us and we step into the new. So that's what I'm here for. And that's what my prayer is for everyone. And so it is. And I'm going to spotlight you, Jesse.
I've been playing this one a lot lately. It's a good reminder. Let the light come through. like a door wide open. Let it all be new. All that once was broken. Let the light come through like a hearth in winter. Let it fill the room, ever warm and tender. It lives in me, it lives in you. So let the light come through. Let the light come through like a sacred morning or afternoon. It was always you. See the world transforming, illuminate the places in the dark, and let your life be like a blazing star. Remember that the light is where you are. It lives in me, it lives in you. So let the light come through. Hey. Let the light come through. There's no need for hiding.